Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Weekly Chording with me, Daz, exploring new music week by week. This week's song is from Johnny Horton and was a suggestion from Glenn. So Johnny Horton began his music career in around 1950, singing country music in California, and did fairly well until the 1950s when country music was on a decline in favor of rockabilly. In an archive article I found from Rockabilly Hall of Fame, TILLMAN Franks is quoted as telling a story like this. Franks hadn't worked in 4 or 5 weeks when Johnny Horton come to the door. He was broke too. Franks told Horton that he just didn't like the way he sang, and Horton said, "No problem, I'll sing any way you want me to." And he was serious. So after that, Horton's first number was When It's Springtime. First number one was When It's Springtime in Alaska in 1959. But other Saga songs also reached heights on the charts, including The Battle of New Orleans and this week's song, Sink the Bismarck. The record was released as a Columbia single in January 1960. It was one of Horton's major crossover hits. It reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 6 on the country chart, entered the Hot 100 at number 69 on March 7th, 1960, and peaked on April 25th. Horton also sang it on The Ed Sullivan Show on May 1st, and so with the combination of chart success, film promotion, and television exposures like that, it's no wonder that the song has remained one of the signature entries in his catalog. So with words and music by Johnny Horton and TILLMAN Franks, here's my take on Sink the Bismarck. May of 1941, the war had just begun. The Germans had the biggest ship, had the biggest guns. The Bismarck was the fastest ship that ever sailed the seas. On the decks were gunners big as steers and shells as big as trees. Out of the cold and foggy night came the British ship, the Hood, and every British seaman he knew and understood. They had to sink the Bismarck, the terror of the seas. Saw those guns as big as steers and those shells as big as trees. But she found the Bismarck, and on that fateful day, the Bismarck started firing 15 miles away. They gotta sink the Bismarck, was the battle sound. When the smoke had cleared away, the mighty Hood went down. For 6 long days and weary nights, they tried to find her trail. Churchill told the people, but every ship will sail. 'Cause somewhere in that ocean, I know she's gotta be. We gotta sink the Bismarck to the bottom of the sea. To find that German battleship that's making such a fuss. We gotta sink the Bismarck, the world depends on us. Hit the decks are running, boys, and spin those guns around. But when we find the Bismarck, we gotta cut her down. The fog was gone on the 7th day, and they saw the morning sun. 10 hours away from homeland, the Bismarck made its run. The admiral of the British fleet said, "Turn those bows around. We found the bottom of the battleship. We're gonna cut her down." The British guns were aimed, and the shells were coming down. The first shell hit the Bismarck. They knew she couldn't last. The mighty German battleship is just a memory. Sink the Bismarck was a battle cry that shook the 7 seas. Found that German battleship was making such a fuss. They had to sink the Bismarck, the world depends on us. We hit the decks are running and we spin those guns around. We found the mighty Bismarck and then we cut her down. Found the German battleship that was making such a fuss. Had to sink the Bismarck, the world depends on us. We hit the deck running, we swung those guns around. We found the mighty Bismarck, and then we cut her down. was inspired by the 1960 war movie Sink the Bismarck, and of course the actual German battleship of the name, the Bismarck. It was commissioned by 20th Century Fox because they were worried that the subject's relative obscurity in the US needed some assistance. However, there's a few places where the song is just factually wrong, and Fox ended up not wanting to use it and offered just to pay them off for $5,000. Offended, Tillman Franks insisted that they had to use the song in some form, and finally it was played before the movie was shown as a sort of advertisement, so in trailers. The song sits right in a series of hits for Horton and Franks at the peak of Horton's career, but tragically there wasn't a slow end to that career. In 1960, Horton himself started having premonitions that, quote, a drunk was going to kill him. So he started avoiding bars as a result, and had trained himself to avoid cars on the road by heading into the ditch. But on the way back from Skyline Club performance in November 1960, a drunk driver ran head-on into their vehicle on a bridge where there was no escape. Frank survived, but Horton did not, so sadly the song forms part of the closing chapter of a very concentrated and successful period in his recording life. But to end this one on a lighter note, what do you do with a sick boat? Well, you take it to the dock, of course. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or hey, maybe buy me a coffee if you are feeling generous. My hour-long live streaming show on YouTube and Twitch this week will be today at 4 p.m., just a few minutes from now, and next Saturday at 11 a.m. Don't forget to join me next week as well for another episode of Weekly Chording at 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Take care, and I hope I will see you then.
Thank you. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye.
Then we cut her down. Found the German battleship that was making such a fuss. Had to sink the Bismarck. The